when you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Yes, we're talking playoffs. It is finally time to take on the Season 18 playoffs. The wild card round starts this weekend, as well as the SFLM gets their debut in Season 5 tomorrow night. Welcome to the final edition of the program this week, otherwise known as NETMA. It is good to see everybody. I'm your host, Tyler Falk, and we already have a whole bunch of people popping in saying, hey, Epic Esports, Aaron Wicker. Of course, Cam pops in saying hello, and Chad Rowland says hi as well. So welcome to everyone jumping in now, or whenever you might jump in and take a watch of this show. Glad to have you. Thanks for stopping by. We've got a lot of stuff to take care of in a short amount of time, because we got a couple of things going on tonight, especially Ashley Jackson's show, which has been released here in the last few minutes, so you're all probably watching that as well. Anywho, let's get to how the thing shaped up for the end of the regular season. Well, the community, you guys ended up at a perfect 500, 72-72. I had a pretty good week. 500 last week at a 6-6 brought me back to a 71-73. So one behind you guys coming in to the postseason. The best bet, I forgot to put that out there, but my best bet was Jacksonville, Carolina. I picked Jacksonville to win that one. Well, it's the second time I've had a Jacksonville game that hasn't gone my way this season. It had to be at the beginning of the season and one at the tail end of it. So maybe I should stop picking Jacksonville games for, my who you got or my best bet. We'll see what happens. Anywho, we're talking playoffs. We've got 4 games we got to cover, and we're going to try and cover it in as much detail as we possibly can. First game on the dock is the first game everyone's going to see this weekend, starting tomorrow afternoon. That is Jacksonville and London. It was the first time all the way back in season 17 that London took down Jacksonville in franchise history. History is going to repeat itself, because that was one of the first times we had seen Pickler perform the way he did. It was an incredible display back in season 17, week 4. Pickler was nearly perfect. 30 of 32 passing with 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Robert Merrill had himself a day both on the ground and through the air as well. Merrill over 100 yards and a touchdown on the ground. But the real story of the show was Vin Cali, who's going to be really, I think, a major focal point in this game as well. 7 receptions, 104 yards in that game, and he had a trio of touchdowns. Jacksonville has improved. That was Dunhill's first season as well. A game where the 2 quarterbacks met for the first time in their young careers as members of their new teams. Again, Dunhill, not necessarily a young player in his own right, has a SFL ring to his name. Pickler, a few years in, spent some time with St. Louis and then over to Louisiana, then over, of course, to London, where he's made a pretty good living. So the main thing is how is this season different from the past season? Well, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Marcus Dunhill has improved, been a lot more consistent, stopped throwing a whole bunch of turnovers. However, the turnovers this season, only 20 or 35 of them have led them to the 4th worst in the league. Well, Pickler is just one behind him, and that puts him at 17th in the entirety of the league. Again, things are going to change with the postseason. Numbers are going to be a little bit construed, but that right now, as Roland puts in chat, yes, the number one pass offense versus the top 3 passing defense. That being London's offense versus Jacksonville's, or other way, London's offense versus Jacksonville's defense. The one thing that kind of scares me, again, statistically, is London's defense. It is very inconsistent in terms of allowing yards, but they do take the football away. Third best in the league at 35 a pop. Their turnover differential would be a lot worse if it hadn't been for a pretty good ball hawking secondary. They're going to need it against Jacksonville. They are not going to be able to shut down the run game as effectively as they would like to. So Jared Willis might have himself a pretty decent day like he had against Carolina. If that happens, Knights might be in trouble. They're going to have to make Jacksonville a little bit more reliant on the pass in order to force takeaways, because if Willis is allowed to get the football in his hands more times than not, and if he's able to break up a couple plays on that defense, this could all change in a heartbeat. But I've got London here in this one. More than a 3-point ball game. I'm thinking about 5 points for this one. London over Jacksonville. On to game number 2, Mexico City, Charleston. Now, the Preds have really been impressive again on defense this season. That's no surprise there. What has surprised me, though, about Charleston's offense is they've become a little bit more assertive in their attack. Charleston's offense has been more reliant in a balanced attack throughout. The offense has not really predicated themselves to Swearingen or been predicated to the pass by, well, at one point TD Drew this season. Now it's Kentez Johnson, who adds a little bit more of a flair to the passing attack, and that also helps out Charleston's last couple successes, able to take down Atlanta in emphatic fashion and able to hook up with Lyric Da Vinci for a nice game-winning touchdown, as it would be known as, against Florida. And again, that was to win the division. Charleston is riding a high. Mexico City, however, have had a pretty good stretch of games, all derailed by a very credible Lone Star attack. The Aztecs, of course, are known for being able to pick up the pace whenever they want to. However, they're really going to be made one-dimensional by Charleston's defense, the number 1 rushing defense in the league in rushing yards. Mexico City is going to have to rely on Hall of Fame quarterback Matt Wilson more times than not this weekend, and I think it's going to hurt them. Charleston's defense, again, one of the best in the league at taking the ball away, tied for 3rd with London at 35 takeaways. Again, Charleston's defense, statistically, the better on paper. They have looked really good. They are going to make things hard for Mexico City. It is going to be a masterclass for Ramos if they pull out the victory. Charleston, I think, pull off the upset win even at home, as Charleston are 3.5-point dogs even at home. Charleston, I think, covers that. Well, I wouldn't say easily, but they probably cover it by 8-point swing, I would say. All right, on to Sunday's games. First game on the docket. That one is Tulsa and DC. DC a 3-point favorites at home. However, I think their inconsistency of late is going to be their downfall. The Dragons in the second half of the season are 2-6, with only one of those being Baltimore, maybe the statement win of the season for any team. However, beyond that, they've been pretty inconsistent. Some bad luck from Arizona, but not a whole lot of really composed wins besides Baltimore. They've lost to 2 above 500 teams, a team at 500, and 1 below 500 in that stretch. However, they do have the toughest strength of schedule on paper. They also have the best strength of victory. Tulsa is right behind them in both categories, though, and they're both right there on strength of defeat, a stat that Matt Wilson likes to use all that often. So it's 2 surprisingly good teams. It's a fantastic 8-9 matchup, a great game to watch if your team is out or if you're looking for something to do on Sunday. In fact, you guys should probably watch all of these games because they're all going to be fantastic. 8 teams at 7-5 in a wild card round. First time that's probably happened, if Cam were to correct me in chat. But again, DC's inconsistency, where I was talking about DC for the longest point this season, is that they run a no-nonsense offense with very little pizzazz or flavor. That's going to be that's going to be limited by a Tulsa team who has a pretty solid defense as of late. The passing defense statistically hasn't been there. They do allow a whole lot of yards, though. Again, same thing like I've talked about with London. Same thing I've talked about with Charleston. They take the ball away. They are second in the league when it comes to takeaways with 37. The one thing that is going to be Tulsa's downfall is whether or not JQ can keep hold of the football with accuracy and precision and keep the ball in turquoise and burnt orange rather than the blue and sand of DC. JQ is notorious for giving the ball away. Gave it away 3 times last week against Atlanta in the victory. However, his stats this season, again, worst quarterback in terms of throwing interceptions with 34 this season. Right around middling of the pack in terms of touchdowns. So they're going to need him to perform at a level that is respectable in order for them to take down DC. DC's not going to allow a whole lot of points. You're not going to see a whole lot of explosive plays from Tulsa this weekend. If that happens, DC are in a whole heck of a lot of trouble, and Tulsa will walk out of DC with a monstrous victory. If DC keep it close, look for maybe a field goal from Brooke Beisel. Again, Douglas Brown, Brooke Beisel, running back kicker. If the running back of Douglas Brown can carry the weight load by JQ, and if Brooke Beisel kicks a game-winning field goal in a close ball game, Tulsa takes the victory. If DC has the ball at the end of the victory, I have full credit that Kevin Say will run right over Tulsa to close out the football game. That's my prediction. I think Tulsa, they'll cover the spread, maybe even take the victory. Final game of the SFL Season 18 playoff wildcard round is Florida Sioux Falls. This is a straight up pick 'em, right? No spread to cover. I'm picking whoever it is. Fourth one this season that we've had a straight up pick 'em. Florida has yet to lose to Sioux Falls in the playoffs. This will be the first time that the Storm have played the Sparrows on the road in the playoffs, however. Last time these two teams met, it was 2 seasons ago or a year ago in season 16 in week 6 when Sioux Falls took down Florida, which was, I believe, their first win of the season. And yet, we've talked about Florida and we've talked about Sioux Falls Sparrows a couple times on this program, but back-to-back 3-9 seasons, including season 16, after a couple of changes made to the league after season 15, find the Sioux Falls Sparrows in a position to maybe come away with a shock victory over a Florida team who are shocked to find themselves at number 12. This game is not a 12 versus 5 matchup. This game is a true, probably battle of two, maybe a 4 and 5 seed if this was taking place back those 2, maybe 3 seasons ago. This is a game that will be watched very closely. It's the first time these two teams have met. I'm trying to think. I think this was, yes. It was a quarterfinal round in season 11, semifinal round in season 10. Both times, Florida, aka known as the Alaska Storm, took home the victory, eventually won titles. So is this a similar fate for Florida Sioux Falls if Florida win? We'll have to find out. It probably would be the first time the lowest ranked seeding came away with the big dance, if that so happens. I think this will be a fantastic football game. We know about the 2 running backs, G.P. Wells for Sioux Falls, and we know about Charlie Boletsky for Florida. I think it's a battle of running backs, not necessarily an air show by Cochran and Tyree. I think Florida edges it out even against the number 1 rushing defense in the league, that being Sioux Falls. Expect a close ball game. Expect it maybe a 24-23 scoreline, Sioux Falls with the win. Just barely eking it out. Okay, so that is going to do it for Pick'ems. Again, the full schedule is on your screen now. Jacksonville, London, this Saturday, 2:30. Following that, Mexico City, Charleston at 4:45. All times are Eastern. Tulsa, DC on Sunday, running back again at 2:30. And Florida, Sioux Falls close out wildcard weekend at 4:45. All right. I don't have any special graphics for the minor league, as again, week 1 on the way tomorrow, so that's why there is no show tomorrow. Some things you probably want to look out for. I'm just going to run you through a couple of some teams here, maybe some names to look out for. Because again, we have a whole host of new players, a lot of new stories, a lot of new faces and names to get to know. welcome to all of you who have joined the minor league. Maybe you're watching this show either today or later down the line. Welcome. You joined a fantastic league. We're going to get to know you. We want you to be here. We want you to be part of the SFL. Let's just go through a couple of the teams, right? So let's start off with A in Albuquerque. So a couple of names you'll probably recognize. That's Trellis Blanton. He's the quarterback. Second season, I should say, in a row that Blanton's been under center over there. A couple of two-way players you might recognize for the Adams is Honest Adobe at wide receiver, TT Crystal also at wide receiver. Those for Atlanta and Mexico City. Those Liam Ryan, Don Fletcher are at corner. One plays for Mexico City. Don Fletcher plays for Atlanta on his two-way contract. There are plenty of more names to note. Dante Graham makes his return at strong safety for Albuquerque. Couple of good names to know. Some names you probably won't recognize, but will probably make a big impact for the Adams is probably Ed Williams at wide receiver, is maybe Baldo Scott at running back, and maybe helping out Dante Grimm in the back is Jax Nuke. Those are a couple of Adam players to look out for. All right, really quickly running down the Navigator lineup. Gene Struthers makes his return at quarterback. Randy Squarebush goes back to Annapolis. He is on a two-way contract, and he is on the Navigators once again. Expect Squarebush to reemerge as the primordial threat in the league, as he probably runs left, right, and center over all these minor league players. Orain Darby from Mexico City comes back into the fold for the Navs. He plays wide receiver. And that's all the two-way contract players. Maybe some other names maybe to get to know of is Lachlan Martin, the tight end, Marco Million, the inside linebacker, and Gary D. Gond at free safety over for Annapolis. All right, over on to Lexington side real quick. Jaleel Usman, the second, is the quarterback. I think that's his second season over there for Lexington. A couple of two-way players. They have a bunch of them, 7 all told. Zachary Patton from Jacksonville, David Gears from Vancouver, Forrest Dalton, Jacksonville, Thomas Matthews, San Diego, Dalton on the line, Matthews, the middle linebacker, Ty Woodson is a two-way cornerback, Travis Arthur from Tulsa, free safety, Isabella Blackwell, the last two-way player from Atlanta at strong safety. They have 4 safeties in total, the Lexington Miners do, so expect a pretty vaunted defensive backfield. Don't expect a whole lot of passing plays to succeed versus that defensive backfield at for the most part, I would say. Lexington's got Tacoma this weekend. So maybe a tough first game for Tacoma, as Lexington probably have the most vaunted defensive backfield. All right, on to Lincoln. Lincoln was Salt Lake City a season ago. That means I move over to Lexington City as the offensive coordinator for a second season running. We'll see if I can improve my coaching style a little bit, as well as continue to develop the great players that we have in the minor league at Lincoln. So Kenny Slider returns at quarterback his second season. Lots of improvement for him. Lottie Lou is still a wide receiver currently with Lincoln. He's on a two-way contract from San Diego. Brian Murphy, tight end from Denver, also comes back, and then it's a whole bunch of new people. But a name you might recognize is Skippy Curtis. She is entering the league. She is on the defensive side of the ball for Lincoln. She's at cornerback. It's great to have her. Frankie Lynn Custer is also a female player making her debut. So 2 female quarterbacks, a female duo we've got in the defensive backfield. Probably one of the longest names I've seen, but one that'll probably be said multiple times, even on the offensive line, is Debrickshaw Mullinex, plays tackle number 69. Nice. Maybe one other name you probably all recognize would probably be Frankie Custer, who makes his return to strong safety for Lincoln. All right, on to the Madison Lynx. Xander Moon comes back again. He's at quarterback. One two-way player is Adrian Ellis from Denver at wide receiver. A couple other names you probably want to take a look is Mike Mello at defensive end. Charrett Maverick at quarterback. Let's see, who else we got? John Fowler at outside linebacker I recognize. Maybe Ron Haynes, the tight end, I've seen a couple times here or there. Marcus Duncan is the tailback. Lots to learn from Madison. We'll see what they do this season. Ottawa, Cyrus Jive back is going to be the quarterback this season for the Cavalry. A couple two-way players, Gus Scott from D.C., Dusty Roque, the tight end. Michael Knight's a new wide receiver, new face in the SFL 1. Mississippi from Denver plays middle linebacker. Terrence Pearson plays cornerback. Maybe a name or two to recognize or get to know is Dwayne Simmons, the tailback, Robert Vale, the defensive tackle, and Amar Bryant Jr., the cornerback. All right, on to San Jose. Quarterback Jordan Sipe, J.Z. Bacon, Toronto Rivera. Those two are in the backfield, running back and fullback respectively, one from Fort Worth, one from Arizona. DJ Bannett comes over from Atlanta on a two-way. He's at tight end. The final two-way player is from Charleston. That's Sam Blotner, who plays free safety. One or two players to maybe recognize as we go throughout the season. Maybe Terrell Cooper, the wide receiver, Jay Viper alongside him as well. Adam Chance, the middle linebacker, of course, and KJ Alaisho, Christian Alaisho, the two names trying to get their own club. Our expansion franchise, the Canton Classics, of course. They're probably the biggest names coming out of the minor league right now. Bryant James, Savin Watson, two strong safeties. We'll see how they use them for the flight. Final team here in this season of the minor league is the Tacoma Grizzlies, and that's Ty Tack, the quarterback. New name, a little bit different spelling. P-A-T-A-K is how you write his last name. Tack is how you say it. Christopher Dean, Shane Kaufman, both from St. Louis, along with Mark Kaufman, all two-way players for the Tacoma Grizzlies. Orlando Grimm, another name one might recognize, is the free safety over in Tacoma. Another name you probably would recognize is Darius Hawkins, probably going to Tulsa, is my guess at the end of this minor league season. So there is just a quick rundown of the minor league teams, a couple of standout names, and all the two-way contracts that are out there. Not really going to do a big old pick'em segment for the minor league as we start out because, again, we got a lot more to talk about with playoffs and all that. So just my picks. Again, we really don't know what these teams are going to bring to the table. Maybe besides Annapolis and Randy Squarebush. These two-way contracts are really going to add a different layer. I talked about it ad nauseum earlier. I'm a little bit, I would say, not on. I would prefer the two-way contracts were worked a little bit differently, but that's beside the point. If you want, I'll go ahead and look back into my history. We might talk about it again at a later date when the playoffs aren't such a big deal. But for now, week one, maybe projections or week one picks. San Jose over Albuquerque, Annapolis over Madison, Lexington over Tacoma, and I'm not going to pick my Lincoln Rattlesnakes to lose in the first week, so I have Lincoln over Ottawa. San Jose, Annapolis, Lexington, Lincoln, my picks for week one. And that is going to do it for a jam-packed final day before we hit wildcard weekend. Good luck to all the minor league teams on Friday. Good luck to all the wildcard teams, all 7 and 5 of you, or I should say 8 of you, here this weekend. Until next weekend, we'll see you then for another edition of NETMA right back here on YouTube on NETMA. I've been Tyler Falk. We'll see you next week. Good morning, good afternoon,